Good morning. Welcome to the No Way Jose podcast. This is the morning dump. It's Wednesday, August 12th. I'm your host, Jose Galison. And here's the kitty of the day, Miss Wren, the queen bee of the house, the elder queen, our retired lady here. No more babies for her, but we'll still keep her around because she is a sweetheart. Most of the days I'm prepping for the show, she's just chilling in my lap as I'm setting up. For those who like seeing my hot takes Monday through Friday, typically around 11 a.m. Eastern when we make it on time. We did it, guys. We're here. We're on time. We're here on the correct day and time. Or if you just like seeing the kitties of the day, like this beautiful chocolate torty Mrs. Wren right here, then be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit that bell for notifications. That way you can see when I'm dropping new videos and when I'm going live. With that, we'll see you in the show.
Beautiful thing, right now.
Rise and shine, it's a beautiful day. I am alright.
About a third of the building has been blown away.
This is the bridge to white lights.
Our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts.
And at that point, we were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad.
It's crazy evil.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a good one. We have plenty to go through today. Starting off the show, as we always do, we'll start off with some Icebreaker content, some more of the fun, the funny, the Gen Pop slop, something along those lines, a little bit of a follow-up from a goofy story yesterday. And then after that, we'll go over to the foreign policy roundup. We're going to get into what's going on in the world of war. Some wild stuff there, although sort of have some stalemates, but that allows us to dig into some other little rabbit holes in the foreign policy front, so that's a good thing. And then from there, we'll go into our first titled segment of the day, the Trump assassination plot fears, digging into some new scares and taking a look back at old ones. And then I made sure of it today to not overload myself with topics because this is like the third or fourth day in a row that I kept cutting it for time. We're going to finish off the secret history of Polymarket Part 7, but I think it works. I think it works. We're going to leave it at the tale that I'm weaving today. I know the deep, dark, deep state sort of stuff that's going on with Polymarket will be very fitting for the sort of rabbit holes we'll be going down today. But with that, before we get into it, a little housekeeping, little casual reminder, as I do every day, little expectations of what this show is. What's the format? I call it an info dump sort of format. So you're kind of throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall, articles, Twitter posts, clips, etc., etc. A lot of this stuff is stuff we're kind of going through together for the first time. Sometimes it's processed info. I mean, I have some certain things that are a little bit my forte and some things that aren't. But that's the general vibe. It's intended to be more of a live stream sort of experience. Now, not everyone does show up for the live stream, so I do accommodate those wonderful people. Actually, most of you guys don't show up for the live stream. The majority of you guys show up later and watch it on your own time, which totally makes sense and is totally fair. And I accommodate you guys by doing things like leaving timestamps in there that we can jump around from topic to topic, and you can avoid the chat banter that I keep towards the end of each segment. That way, that way you can make it more like a podcast sort of experience. And it's kind of weird to be listen to the chat when you're not there live. Now, if you are here for the live interactive experience, I do like to remind you guys you get at least one good morning that I try to give you at least good morning. Who knows? I might forget. I might miss a person, but I'm pretty good at it. After that, you got to catch my interest or catch my wallet. Luckily, I have the attention span of a squirrel at times. But if you do want to contribute, you can super chat. That'll put you to the front of the line. Also, I do bias people that I know are patrons, and we have a pretty close knit little group. So I'm generally pretty aware of who is and who isn't. So if you look in the top left hand corner here, QR code over patreon.com. There's No Way Jose 2020. You also get other perks there too, which I will list at the end of the episode. But yeah, so that gives you a little bit of bias in the chat. But with that, let's go ahead and get into it. Let's get into some icebreaker stuff. Then we'll crack into the chat, see what's going on with you great people. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into some icebreaker content. Like I said, we have a follow-up from yesterday. We kind of dug a little bit into the Sleepy Dawn himself, which I say that with no hate and no anger in my heart, no shitting, and I don't even mean it in a backhanded way, in like a Sleepy Joe sort of way. I actually think it's probably one of the coolest things that Trump does. It just sleeps during official functions. But there's a little bit of a follow-up. We got deep in the weeds. One of it looks like one of his aides or some broad. One of his broads that's paid to be near him for some monotonous function. She was doing this like belly patting thing. So there's theories going around that perhaps they had a little zapper that would zap him awake. Like she would be kind of the one watching, keeping an overwatch on it. Is the golden eagle down? The golden eagle's down. Hit the buzzer. You know, like that. That's her job. Now we've got a follow up from her. She's responded to the controversy, so I thought that was pretty interesting and worth commenting on. So she with the little tummy tapping thing. Her response is, "I'm just pregnant, you weirdos." Okay, well, but that maybe this is a con. Either way, whatever. It's a fun little rabbit hole. It was a funny one. But moving on in a similar such vein, here's an old one I've had in the bookmark for a while. It just didn't seem appropriate to cover, and this seems fit and seeming in the same vein of coverage. A little bit of goofy when internet trollery meets real life politician. Here's a story. This is a post from Mike Young in regards to a article from the Daily Beast from like last month, July 7th, of a self-confessed Vance troll was shunned from one of the vice president's taxpayer-funded events by secret agents who told her, "We know where you stand." This is what Mike Young had to say. He says a woman registered for a public J.D. Vance event using the official sign-up form, got a confirmation on White House letterhead, and stood in line for 30 minutes before 5 people, 2 of them armed service agents, pulled her out by name and told her, "We know where you stand." Her offense was running a cat meme Instagram account with 2 million followers. The ACLU is now suing the executive office of the president and the Secret Service over it. And the strongest detail in the whole complaint is not the ejection itself. It is that the Secret Service agents apparently monitor a satire account closely enough to recognize its founder on site in a rope line in Bangor, Maine. Funny enough, that's where I went to high school for the first half of my high school career, I guess. Over there in Bangor before I moved to Tennessee. I went to Bangor Christian. Vance called his own 2021 cat lady's comment one of the dumbest things he has ever said. He was right the first time. Weaponizing federal security personnel against the woman who turned that quote into a punchline is a worse unforced error than the original one. Either way, hilarious. Vance and an online cat lady at odds, and literally explicitly picking her out of the line, saying, "Fuck off, get out of here. We know who you are and what you're about." Just funny one. I did want to point out this reply that I thought was worth being aware of. It's Jenny Jink. She says, "It's not that they recognized her. They did background investigations on everyone who signed up using AI, then pulled her based on that. There's the violation." So that's a little creepy. A little creepy that they're just running names through AI like that. Gave that article a little retweet if anyone wants to go check that out on the account and get a little bit more info on the specifics there. But yeah, although it's no surprise knowing Vance and his ties to Teal. Continuing on, going to a lesser demon in the Trump administration, Kash Patel. Apparently he just lost. They say he loses a lawsuit, but there's a little bit of a caveat here. But the headline from the New Republic is Kash Patel loses lawsuit against man who called him googly-eyed chud. This is a federal judge who has thrown out the FBI director's lawsuit against a blogger who called him a googly-eyed Kremlin bitch. So pretty hilarious stuff. I mean, apparently it just got thrown out, though. They're saying that he lost it. I mean, that's a little bit misleading, I think. But they threw it out. So, yep. This is what Grok is great for. These silly little things like this, just to verify it real quick. But yeah, the underlying 2023 lawsuit was dismissed by a Nevada federal judge on July 25th, 2026 due to lack of personal jurisdiction over the California-based defendant without ruling on the merits of the statement. So even that, I mean, it is fun to sometimes see headlines and go, ha ha ha, googly-eyed chud, oh, he's losing his... And like, yeah, those are all like, I guess, sort of kind of true. Losing's a little bit in the misleading kind of lying category. But either way, this is, I guess, more of a jurisdiction issue as opposed to merits. But either way, whatever. It's funny to check in on Kash Patel and his frivolous lawsuits. I don't know if that's one he's instigated or one against him. I know he has multiple things going on. With that, let's roll in the chat, say some good mornings. Then after that, we'll get into foreign policy, check in on the world of war. Good morning, user chathead. Good morning. Good morning. How are you? Asking, are we on yet? We sure are. On and on time. Good morning, GitHub and Nuck. Good morning, Schizos. Good morning, good morning, good morning, King David. Saying hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't. Yes, please, hype, retweet, do whatever things on whatever platform you're on. 5-star reviews, help a brother out. Hooks me up. Good morning, Tom33, saying, where my Rumble is at. We on time today? We sure are. Good morning, OG Matzo Balls. Good morning, good morning. Good morning, Sirhan Solo, saying good morning to all of you. Good morning, Jacob Sewick, saying, fuck yeah, bud. Good morning, Billy Macabre. Good morning, Sunshine, he says. Good morning to you as well. Tom33 says, I'm 28. I would 100% fall asleep in these boring-ass meetings, let alone the 80-year-olds we put in office. It actually reminds me of when I went through basic training, and like one of the things they gave you in your little like wall lockers or general things was they gave you like a Germ-X little hand sanitizer thing, like a cleanliness thing, some sort of cleanliness initiative, which, yeah, totally makes sense. But they literally would have to like regularly do like briefings and like every now and then. I think there were even like certain like people who were made disciplinary examples of. Where like people were sniffing, were like huffing Germ-X because it would keep them awake. Because a lot of people have this idea of what basic training is. Now I can only speak on what the Air Force is, but generally they're kind of all pretty much the same. But a lot of it it's not all hoorah badass shit. Most of it's like pretty gay, like kind of like monotonous mind washing type of bullshit. And it's a lot of briefings as well. A lot of like sitting in some lame ass. Like, imagine, like, corporate world. Like, you're, going to, I don't know, what am I trying to think of? I never really was in corporate world. The military's kind of like corporate world in its own way, but it's like, I used to always joke and say, like, don't rape yourself, don't rape people, don't kill yourself training. I'm sure they have same stuff in the corporate world, but that was like the two main ones in the military world. But yeah, in the military world, it's like, there was a whole bunch of, but anyways, a whole bunch of briefings. Like, I don't know, for example, I'm trying to think of one, like, a briefing on the law of armed conflict. So, like, if you're going through basic training, that is basic training. If you're, like, in the Air Force, you could go, it's what everybody goes through. So it's got to be one size fits all. You could be going off to literally any career field. So the idea is, like, say, law of armed conflicts. Like, so they kind of give you a briefing, a general overview that, like, anyone that's military, regardless of your career field, should know. So it's the most basic. You really don't learn much from any of these briefings, but it's like very surface level, and they're so fucking boring. So boring. And there's so many of them. So there's the basic training, while people have this idea of it being like badass, it's a lot of sitting around, a lot of being bored, a lot of getting fucked with over really monotonous, silly gay shit. Like, that's what it is. It really is not this cool, dudes rock sort of thing that they try to make it out to be. Anyways, back to the snuffing the Germ-X. So even as like early, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, like even these gay ass, like bureaucratic, like lame, created by a council sort of info, presentations, you'd still just be seeing half the room just nodding off. So you throw in an 80-year-old and you have my sympathy, sir. Not for the pedophilia, but for the having to be awake in official functions. Good morning, Marnamat. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, John Black, with a happy poop 10 joules. If you haven't noticed, I've been a little bit ignoring joules stuff because I really don't. I mean, it's great. You guys want to share it. I have no idea what this currency means. But John Black's a patron, so I'll give him a preference. Now, if I do learn this currency in some way, actually has help. Maybe it's like hype points or something. Maybe it's somehow upping in the algo. Maybe I will start prioritizing these silly little things. I don't know. Good morning, John Black, though. You get another one because, once again, you give me money. Good morning, Rumble Dumplings. Hope y'all faggots are doing well. By the way, I hope you're doing well, John Black. I know you recently had a bit of an accident. Glad to see you are doing better. Was concerned. I guess not to air out all your stuff, but I guess you did post it. So I believe you got what? In my understanding, you got an accident and you ended up getting kind of generic medical scans, and they found something more. So I don't know if you want to fill in the chat more. I'd be welcome to fill in everybody else here in a little bit. Next go around in the chat because I'm interested. Are you doing okay? I know I believe you guys found something more essentially. Like the accident wasn't the issue, is my understanding, but they did kind of reveal some stuff. So hope you're doing good. Hope whatever it is they found is easily resolved. Because how else are you going to give me money? Just kidding. Obviously, I want you to do well. But with that, let's go ahead and get into foreign policy. Let's check in on what's going on over there. Like I've said, it's kind of a little bit chill on the Iran side, although we still have this blockade going on. So we got a U.S. helicopter bombs cargo ship in the Gulf of Oman. So CENTCOM on Tuesday announced that a U.S. military helicopter bombed a civilian cargo ship in the Gulf of Oman that accused of attempting to break the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports. CENTCOM said a U.S. Navy MH-60 helicopter fired 2 Hellfire missiles into an engine room of the Panama-flagged Vela Nova after the ship's civilian crew ignored repeated warnings from American forces. The ship is no longer transiting to Iran in violation of the U.S. blockade, which remains in full effect. CENTCOM wrote on X, adding that since it reimposed the blockade last month, it has redirected 55 commercial vessels attempting to run the blockade, disabled 3 non-compliant vessels, and boarded 2. According to the Wall Street Journal, the maritime security firm Vanguard reported that the Vela Nova was struck while transiting westbound through the Gulf of Oman, about 71 nautical miles from the coast of Pakistan. Vanguard said a fire caused by the strike was extinguished and all 17 crew members were accounted for. The U.S. also bombed several civilian ships while it was enforcing the blockade earlier in the war, and one strike on a vessel in early June killed 3 Indian mariners. Tuesday's incident highlights the fact the U.S. is still very much at war with Iran as it continues enforcing a blockade on the country, a blockade that Iranian officials maintain must be lifted in order for the Strait of Hormuz to be opened. And as I said, we are in this kind of weird situation of like kind of a bit of a stalemate. I wouldn't necessarily take that as indication of the U.S. necessarily backing down. I don't know where things are, but to this idea of a stalemate, we've got some inside reports from the USS Lincoln, which is one of the naval ships. This is from the Cradle that we have here. So just reports here. This is a multimedia producer, Andrew Brown, claiming that apparently 6 people have tried to jump off the ship, and the reason being to record-setting times out at sea. This idea of, my understanding is I believe they're kind of essentially around a 3/4 of a year deployment at sea, which, to kind of put that in perspective, I think they were around the time I got out of the Air Force. They were, kind of, at least my career field specifically, they were getting ready to expand the deployments to be typically longer. But generally speaking, like when I was in as an aircraft mechanic, it was 4-month deployments, generally speaking. You could extend while you're there and double it for 8 if you want to. But generally, it was 4. It was a 4-month deployment. I mean, you might get some shorter ones, but generally it was 4. And that was also, to a deployed location on a deployed base. So you're not out in the middle of the sea. You do have some, you have some amenities, some stuff. It's a very different, obviously I've never been on a Navy ship, so I know it's a much different thing. It's all about, how regularly you're going back to port. And these guys have gone a long ass time without going to port, and things are getting very dicey over there. So I know, I think this is very indicative of what our current situation is in this stalemate of sorts between the U.S. and Iran. But here you go.
You guys, there's a mental health crisis happening aboard the USS Lincoln in the Middle East that no one is talking about, and mainly because the Navy's pretty much quashing it. You will read online about food shortages, supply shortages, poor morale among crew members. That's because they've been at sea continuously for 250 days. They've been deployed a total of 271 days, 250 without a port of call. That's unheard of. Normally, they would go to port every 3 to 6 weeks. They have not been to port in 38 weeks. Keep in mind, there are 52 weeks in a year. And yes, the showers are moldy. They are eating basically like a gruel kind of slop at this point. There's no deodorant. There is no toothpaste. My nephew has a friend on board there, and I was basically hearing updates last week when I was in the States in real time. They're not talking about the mental health crisis. 6 people have tried to jump off that ship. The most recent was last Monday. You know, when you have not touched land in 38 weeks, in over 200 days, things start to happen to you mentally. You know, combine that with exhaustion and deadly mistakes start to happen. So, you know, this is how the Department of War, this is how Donald Trump treats our servicemen and women, whose lives are already being put in harm's way for a bullshit war of aggression that was supposed to be over in a matter of weeks. We are further putting their lives at risk out of sheer ineptitude and neglect. It defies logic, it defies reason, and it defies basic fucking humanity.
Yeah, and from like a military perspective of these guys going, like, I mean, like I said, I came from the Air Force. I had the 4-month deployment, so that's on the lower end of things. That's pretty cush. I'd say I've talked to other people who were in the Army before and stuff, and I'd say it's probably a lot of other people, especially post like the heat of the terror war, kind of like the late 2000s, the 2020s. It was like, it seems like the 6-month deployment seemed to be pretty common. Is many career fields that would, or many different branches or career fields would have like 6 months seem to be the common one there. So the idea is these guys are out to sea for like 3/4 of a year, completely insane. But keep in mind too, these guys usually semi-regularly will stop at port and stuff. Moving on, another inside look, once again, these by the way are coming from you guys. I do want to give a big shout out, for example, No Mud No Lotus here, big ups for the producers of the show out here, the unpaid producers, the people that just tag me and stuff online. You guys help out a lot. But here's another inside look in regards to the missiles, the dwindling munitions of the U.S. military. Here's from Daniel Boguslaw. He is an investigative reporter over at Vice. He says, here's an email I obtained from a colonel overseeing U.S. missile procurement, instructs thousands of Department of War procurement / DEV employees to tell the media everything. You guys aren't getting like, is any weird connectivity issues? Let me know if you are. I just started being real slow all of a sudden. All right, let's. Anyways, here's back to the message. A subject messaging for PMs and staff. OSW statement on weapons stockpiles importance high. It says hello PAE fires. Assuming it's just like the unit and probably their little mascot. It says, please ensure the following statement is used in any communications if queried by media regarding weapons stockpiles. America's military is the most powerful in the world and has everything it needs to execute at the time and place of the president's choosing. We have executed multiple successful operations against combatant commands while ensuring the U.S. military possesses a deep arsenal of capabilities to protect our people and our interests. Notice how that's not an answer about your weapons stockpiles. That is just a loaded political statement there. So I think that is very telling. It says, thank you, Colonel Rogers, Anthony Tony Rogers, Colonel of the U.S. Army, the Deputy Chief of Staff. So this is the sort of communications we're getting behind the scenes. Moving on, another wild story that I don't know if Anti-War didn't cover this because like I said, I missed about a week. But this is one just surprisingly I haven't seen. I believe I vaguely recall this was on Anti-War, but I do want to say though that this has not really been seen much else anywhere else or much anywhere else. I think I saw Breaking Points did a quick story on it, and that's about it. But I did want to share this with you guys because this is. The U.S. military accidentally killed everybody on board a civilian medevac flight in New Mexico. That's what it is. It's literally the U.S. military killing U.S. civilians in the U.S. Now, it is accidentally, so there's that. But either way, that is very much like you think people should go, hey, yo, what the fuck? So That's what we're doing here. Let's dig a little bit into this one. When the FAA shut down traffic to El Paso Airport earlier this year, nobody could have guessed that an experimental high-energy laser weapon was the cause. After days of chaos and speculation, it was revealed that Customs and Border Patrol officials had fired off a laser volley from a U.S. Army base adjacent to the El Paso Airport. Though the trigger-happy Border Patrol grunts evidently thought they were firing at drug-smuggling drones, their real target it turned out to be a kid's party balloon. Regardless, it was later reported the cutting-edge weapon was taken for a test drive a week before FAA and Pentagon officials had a chance to discuss how to safely implement the laser device, making a small miracle that nobody in the air was killed. Not every use of an experimental aerospace weapon goes off without a hitch, however. New bombshell reporting by Wired reveals an incident in which the testing of an experimental GPS jammer resulted in a medical plane crashing into the side of a mountain. The horrifying incident happened in May, the publication reports, when a small twin-engine medevac aircraft carrying 2 pilots and 2 medical workers departed from Roswell. So a lot of people have made this has been kind of gotten it's been getting some clicks over in the alien department. A lot of people making a whole lot of speculation there. Aliens involved? I don't know. Sure, maybe, why not? I don't fucking know. Heading west for the small mountain village of Ruidoso, the crew became the victim of an electronic warfare exercise being conducted at the nearby White Sands Missile Range, a test which rendered their navigation system inoperable. Due to a combination of low visibility and air traffic control that was stretched far beyond capacity, at least 3 other planes reported navigation disruptions due to the GPS jamming. The pilots failed to register a mountainous formation between their plane and the landing strip. As airplane pilot and aviation crash analyst Juwan Brown told Wired, the visual effect of that approach would have been stupefying. When those lights go out, man, you know you are in big trouble, Brown explained. Unfortunately, the disorienting crew ran straight into the side of a mountain they likely never saw, resulting in the loss of every life on board. It's the first known instance where military GPS jamming played a role in downing a civilian plane in U.S. airspace. Reported incidences of GPS jamming within the continental U.S. have skyrocketed in recent years. According to the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, the number of GPS interference events went from 4 in 2020 to 50 in 2024 and 40 across 2025. After the initial publication of this piece, a spokesperson for the U.S. Army provided a statement in response. The Army is aware of the NTSB's preliminary report into the crash of a civilian medical evacuation flight on May 14th in the vicinity of Ruidoso, New Mexico. It reads, as the incident remains under investigation, we cannot comment at this time. Though the crew involved in the New Mexico crash was warned that GPS interference may be present, there evidently wasn't enough safeguards or air traffic control personnel in place to prevent a strategy. So, wild story. So, U.S. military literally killing people in the United States. Now, accidentally, maybe. Like I said, there's the weird intrigue of this being in Roswell and weird experimental weapons. It leaves you wondering, that's for sure. Continuing on, let's check in on our greatest ally and the horrors they commit. Palestinian officials report over 5,400 casualties in Gaza since start of U.S.-backed ceasefire. I know we so often usually frame this in terms of deaths, but it makes sense also to look at it in terms of casualties. And in this current circumstance too, the numbers are dwindling right now. I think it's likely due to political pressure and not wanting to actually pull out occupations. So this is kind of doing a little bit of both, if that makes sense. Like, we're not going to pull out, but we'll pull down on the killing for a moment, only to ramp up the killing later. So, but 5,400 casualties. A casualty obviously being an injury or killing, obviously. So that kind of puts it a little bit more in perspective, although I believe we're around like 1,200 even killed. So that's nuts. But the Gaza Health Ministry said in its daily statistical report on 11 August, over 5,400 Palestinians have been killed and wounded in the besieged strip since the U.S. launched its so-called peace plan and ceasefire process in October 2025. The ministry said on Tuesday that 1,259 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli attacks on Gaza since U.S. President Trump launched his plan last year. The number of wounded stands at 4,146, it added. Israel has not stopped attacks and ceasefire violations since the 2025 U.S. plan was launched It has also illegally occupied 70% of the Strip. Hebrew media reported this week that Tel Aviv informed Washington that it will not stop carrying out strikes on Gaza. Keep that in mind next time you see J.D. Vance flouting about these peace deals they're supposedly doing in the Middle East that are curbing the violence or doing something. It doesn't seem like it's doing much of anything. According to the 10 August Channel 13 report, Israel told the White House it was prepared for a deal to halt targeted assassinations in the devastated enclave. However, this would not apply to anybody who took part in Operation Al-Aqsa Flood on 7 October 2023, which, let's be real, the person interpreting that's probably going to mean that's literally everyone. In early July, Hamas announced the dissolution of the resistance-led governing body in Gaza, which has overseen the Strip's administration for close to 2 decades. This was carried out in line with the provisions of the U.S.-sponsored agreement. Hamas has since said it was ready to hand over authority to a U.S.-endorsed technocratic committee known as the National Committee for Administration of Gaza as part of the agreement. Yet Tel Aviv has blocked the NCAG from entering Gaza to begin its duties. After the October 2025 deal took effect, Israel established what it calls its Yellow Line in Gaza. The Yellow Line was meant to act as an initial perimeter to which occupation troops would withdraw as stipulated in the ceasefire deal. Further Israeli withdrawals were supposed to take place in parallel with a gradual disarmament or decommissioning of the resistance's arms. But Israeli forces refused withdrawal from the start and continued to carry out genocide. They also continued expanding the occupation and pushing beyond the Yellow Line, erecting permanent outposts around it following the launch of Washington's October 2025 peace plan and so-called truce. New satellite images indicate that Israel is building a massive barrier in order, in effect, to partition the besieged enclave. So, not looking great, although the deaths have seemed to slow recently, so hopefully that continues. But the deaths have crept back up over in Lebanon. We got another death. It's been a little bit since we've covered a Lebanon story because they've been, once again, in kind of a weird stalemate position, kind of having these ongoing talks between Israel and Lebanon, and then I believe even the U.S. getting in the mix occasionally. But Israeli strike in Lebanon kills 1 civilian, wounds another. Israeli forces carried out a double tack attack, they love those things, against Nabatea today, wounding 2 civilians in the initial strike and then attacking the ambulance that was attempting to rescue them. The ambulance was reportedly damaged and no additional casualties were reported in the incident. One of the wounded later died in the hospital of his wounds, according to subsequent reports. The Lebanese health ministry issued a statement condemning the attack on the rescue workers, which was just the latest in the long line of Israeli strikes during the course of this war, targeting protected healthcare workers in violation of international law. The IDF, for its part, issued a blanket denial of the incident, claiming to be unaware of any attacks taking place in Nabatea at the time the area near the ambulance was struck. Israel strikes southern Lebanon, including Nabatea, multiple times a day. Explosives were also dropped in another part of Nabatea, causing fires, and incendiaries were dropped in the university district on the outskirts of Kfar Rumin, though no casualties were reported in these incidents. The UN Human Rights Office issued a statement warning of growing risks to women who are being newly displaced in the latest rounds of Israeli evacuation orders, noting that many of them lack health care and that pregnant women are being forced to evacuate their homes and delivered to term in crowded conditions without access to medical care. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun spoke today to a delegation of Maronite Christians and assured them that Israel would not be allowed to continue the occupation of any part of Lebanon. He said they were united in goals of ending the Israeli occupation and facilitating the return of any civilians captured by Israel over the course of the war. These goals are relatively uniform politically across Lebanon, though how exactly they seem achieved is unclear, as 7 rounds of talks with Israel have gained virtually no concessions from the Israeli side. Israeli withdrawal from Lebanese territory has consistently been a red line, and increasingly the Israeli negotiators are segueing the matter towards things like Lebanon agreeing to dig up historic Lebanese Jewish graves and send the remains to Israel, which obviously would just be completely ridiculous ask, but they have asked it nonetheless. Taking a little, here's another one of you guys shared, appreciate it, Silence at Silent Tidal Wave. Found this little clip digging into the weaponized immigration occurring by our buddies over in the Middle East, obviously saying that with the greatest of sarcasm. But a little bit of dig into the whole Spain-Israel thing. I think we may have mentioned this in passing recently, but here's a little bit more of a dig into that. Figured we'd take a listen.
Happened in Ceuta. People have asked me to talk about this. In May 2019, Benjamin Netanyahu's son Yair posted this: "Dear Arabs and Muslims, want to free occupied Arab Islamic lands? Here's a good start." He attached a map of Ceuta and Melilla. Then he followed up: "Let's make a deal. We won't fund NGOs in your country calling you to give away Ceuta and Melilla, and you will stop funding NGOs in our country that call us to give away Judea and Samaria." Fast forward to 2026. In March, Michael Rubin, an American Jewish man, published 2 pieces calling on Morocco to launch a new Green March into Ceuta and Melilla. Unarmed civilians, bulldozers, raised the Moroccan flag. He said NATO's mutual defense clause wouldn't even apply. In April, Amin Ayoub wrote in Ynet, one of Israel's biggest news sites, Israel should help Morocco claim the enclaves. It would punish Spain for obstructing American and Israeli priorities, and it would be a strategic investment in the partner that controls one of the world's most vital maritime choke points, Strait of Gibraltar. On July 30th, Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, posted Spain should explain to the world why it maintains colonial enclaves in Africa. The Israeli embassy in Spain had to distance itself the next day. Then, on August 1st, a Times of Israel blog declared Spain had already lost Ceuta and urged Morocco to finish the job. His words: with Israeli and American backing under the Abraham Accords. So why does this benefit Israel? This is what they said in writing, not me. Control of the southern shore of the Strait of Gibraltar, a reliable military partner instead of a hostile Spanish government that criticizes Israel, recognized Palestine and blocked US bases, punishment for obstruction, deeper Abraham Accords cooperation, permanent surveillance and influence over one of the planet's key shipping lanes without needing Spain's permission. So how did the surge happen? It came from hashtag Haraga. Haraga means irregular migrants who burn their documents so they can't be sent back. It's amazing they even have a word for that. For weeks, a coordinated campaign ran across TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. Videos of previous successful crossings, maps, meeting points, equipment lists, claims that a Spanish court ruling meant that the border was now open and no one could be returned. The campaign peaked on and around Morocco's throne day. Tens of thousands moved. Border controls on the Moroccan side were reported as unusually light. You can go on TikTok and type in Haraga and see for yourself. I thought illegal activity was banned on these platforms. Who recently bought TikTok?
All right. Interesting stuff. Let's move on. Let's check in on something I have been very much lacking on digging into on this show. Let's check in on the Ukraine-Russia war. It has been continually kind of being vicious and kind of slowly seems to uptick every now and then. And we got a bit of a dead day, so why not dig into it? And we really should be digging into it more, which we'll get into here in the next story, the why. But we got Russia strikes pound Ukrainian cities, killing at least 10. Russian strikes pounded Ukrainian cities on yesterday, killing at least 10 civilians. Attacks that came a day after Ukrainian drones killed 13 civilians in the Russian city of Nizhnekomsk. I think I got that. According to the Associated Press, 3 people, including a 15-year-old boy, were killed by drone and artillery attacks in Ukraine's I'm not going to get that one. Dnipropetrovsk region. A steel company in Zaporizhia said that 7 of its workers were killed and 21 were injured by a Russian strike that hit one of its plants. Now I remember another reason why I didn't like to cover these as much. The words get me big time. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky alleged the strikes on Zaporizhia were carried out using missiles provided by North Korea, a claim that hasn't been confirmed. And the Ukrainian Air Force reported something different, saying the city, as well as Kiev, were targeted with Zircon anti-ship missiles and Iskander ballistic missiles. Local officials said that one of the strikes in Kiev hit the grounds of a children's hospital. In its statement on the attacks, the Russian Defense Ministry reporting that it's... Local fishes. Sorry, I lost my place. Totally lost my place because I was trying to do too many things at once there. Let's start. Local officials said one of the strikes Kiev hit the grounds of Children's Hospital. I know I read that part. Sorry, guys. But in its statement on the attack, the Russian Defense Ministry claimed it targeted defense industry facilities and transport and logistics centers in Kiev and Zaporizhia. The Ukrainian Air Force said that on top of the missiles, Russia launched 120 drones across Ukraine. Ukrainian drones also targeted Russia on Tuesday, with the Russian Defense Ministry reporting that its forces intercepted nearly 400 over multiple Russian regions, and at least one Russian civilian was killed by an attack in the Voronezh Oblast. A Russian Foreign Ministry official said that over the past week, Ukrainian drone attacks, which are backed by the U.S., killed 43 civilians in Russia, including 4 children. The rise in civilian casualties inside Russia has led to an escalation of Russian strikes inside Ukraine, resulting in more Ukrainian civilian casualties. Russia has taken advantage of Ukraine's depleted air defense, and Ukrainian officials have said that in some recent attacks, Ukraine's military has failed to intercept a single missile. Russian forces also maintain momentum on the front line, slowly making territorial gains. And as I said, the little bit of the why here, why we really should be reporting on this more over here on this show. Here's Ukrainian drone commander says U.S. and NATO funding needed to escalate drone war in Crimea. So it's just like, it's one of these things like we have talked much about how this war has kind of become this weird dystopian thing, become more of this like new generation of warfare, this drone warfare. But it kind of didn't start out like that. It's almost like it slowly transitioned to this. And it's also, and to pair that with, we also had this, like, we've been funding it. And there was this little bit sort of this trick, during the early portions of the Trump administration where they sort of were like making overtures toward the idea that, we're going to stop, giving Ukraine money. And then we're still giving Ukraine money. So we are funding this. We're funding this dystopian drone war as well. So it's not even just funding. It's not like your normal proxy wars, which those are bad enough. It's just something about this new futuristic, like we're ushering in, we're funding the new hellscape essentially. So I mean, there's no reason. I mean, look between Ukraine and NATO. Part of the reason why this was such a big deal is like these first world nations of sorts going to war. And so if you are someone from a first world nation, like myself, as are you, I would assume, I would think this should make your butthole pucker up a little bit, considering some of the major hegemons seem to be liking to butt heads up these days. So just saying. Luckily, we do have an ocean between us, but I don't know. I'm not comfortable enough there, so maybe we should stop causing shit. On Monday, Major Robert Magyar Brovdy, commander of Ukraine's unmanned system forces, was profiled by Hanna Arhirova in the Associated Press, while Brovdy emphasized the strategic importance of conducting deep drone strikes within Russia. This summer, he has been focused closer to home. Since June, Brovdy has been tasked with waging an escalated drone offensive against Crimea, an attempt to deny Russia the use of the Black Sea Peninsula as a military staging area. Crimea falls within the key conceptual pillars on the path to ending the war, he said. Crimea was seized from Ukraine and annexed by Russia in 2014, following a Western-backed coup that ousted President Viktor Yanukovych. At the time, Ukrainian nationalists threatened to kick Russia out of its only year-round warm water naval base in Sevastopol, Crimea, thereby denying Russia direct access to the Mediterranean Sea. The summer drone offensive has hit Russian air defenses, supply lines, railways, oil infrastructure, and power plants. On June 19th, a Ukrainian drone attack on an oil refinery in Kerch, Crimea, killed 4 civilians, wounded 28 additional civilians, and forced the government in Crimea to halt gas sales. Brovdy claimed his drone war in Crimea is only running at 14% of its potential full capacity. He said his drone army could be hitting up to 7 times as many targets in Crimea, but for a lack of funding. It's not that a production capacity of Ukrainian manufacturers doesn't allow us to make the necessary quantities of drones, Brovdy said. It's the banal problem of untimely financing, which our partners do allocate, but which moves significantly slower than our plans. Those partners, of course, are the U.S. and NATO. While the full extent of American and NATO support for Ukrainian long-range strikes within Russia remains classified, Ukraine has used intelligence from the U.S. and NATO to conduct its long-range drone attacks. The United States assisted in building Ukraine's drone industry, and without Western funding, the current wartime government of Ukraine could not exist. And now a senior Ukrainian military commander has admitted that Ukraine cannot escalate its war with Russia the way it desires and intends to unless more money is poured from America and NATO. Since 2022, when Russia directly invaded Ukraine, the United States and its NATO allies have provided Ukraine with more than $350 billion in military, financial, and humanitarian aid. With that, let's go and get a chat, checking on you guys, and then we'll get into our first titled segment of the day. All right, let's see what you guys got to say. Good morning, Bug Fights. Good morning. Ooh, here's a follow-up from John Black, too. It says, I have a brain tumor. It may or may not make me more or less retarded. I may or may not have to have brain surgery. I just rubbed some dirt on it. It's here to stay. Well, I hope everything works out just fine. I'm sure it will. Definitely keep us updated. Good morning, Nevsky. Says the Spanish government is pro-Muslim and wants more Muslims. They've been bringing hordes of Muslims for several years now. Yeah, I mean, I know the key issue of this story was the crazy degree and that they brought them over here. So I'm not saying they aren't like some welfare pro-immigration country. I assume that of any European country. Good morning, Hotep. Good morning, good morning. Says, God damn it, I woke up again in this Jew, true, and controlled realm. Good morning, fellow retards. I didn't know this. Nevsky says Moroccan police beat the crap out of those invaders when they went back to Morocco. Morocco doesn't want them while the Spanish government does. Okay, I mean, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's not like something I know a ton about. It wouldn't really surprise me either way. All right, let's get into Trump assassination plot fears. Now, we do have as I said, there's a new assassination scare recently. Looked like they pulled some sort of trickery, some little switcheroo, like, oh, I'm not going on Air Force One, I'm going on this other thing. So let's talk a little about that. We have this is a report from antiwar.com, says, it was actually Middle East Eye reported, but this is a piece from antiwar.com reporting on the report. It says Turkey suspects Israel fabricated Trump assassination plot to derail U.S.-Iran diplomacy. So this is from Dave the Camp. It says Turkish officials suspect an Israeli intelligence report about an Iranian plot to assassinate Trump at the NATO summit in Ankara last month was a ruse designed to derail diplomacy between the U.S. and Iran, Middle East Eye reported on Tuesday. The Washington Post first reported on Monday that the U.S. thought there was a credible enough threat against Trump that he secretly swapped planes when he departed Turkey. The president flew into Ankara on a new version of Air Force One donated by Qatar, but made a public show of departing on the older Air Force One, saying he was doing so for old time's sake. According to the Post report, after boarding the older Air Force One, Trump was then moved to a third plane, an Air Force C-32A via catering truck. Some White House staffers and reporters on the older Air Force One thought Trump was also on board as they flew to the UK, making them unwitting decoys, which is pretty hilarious. I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, how dare you use reporters as decoys? Well, I mean, it's better than using people. Am I right? Missing from the Post report was where the intelligence about a plot against Trump came from. According to the Middle East Eye and also a report from the Wall Street Journal, it came from Israel, which aligns with reports from the time. Sources told MEE that the Israeli intelligence report warned the Iranian covert forces could target Air Force One at the airport in Ankara using shoulder-fired rockets known as man-pads from just 1 kilometer away. Due to the alleged threat, the Secret Service moved the departure point from Ankara Airport to Esenboga Airport and wanted to switch from the new Air Force One to the old one. Of course, we took the report very seriously and tried to assist our American counterparts as much as possible, a source described as a person familiar with the matter told MEE. Yet it was very clear to us that there was no way this report was true. The report said Turkish officials believe that the government of Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu devised a plot to make it appear that Israel was protecting Trump, further derail diplomacy between the U.S. and Iran, and also strain relations between Trump and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, whom the U.S. president repeatedly praised during the summit. Israel has strongly opposed the idea of the U.S. selling F-35 fighter jets to Turkey, something Trump has said he's strongly considering. Another source described as Ankara insider told MEE that it was ironic the Secret Service's decision to move Trump has been leaked just 1 month after it happened. I guess they need heroes for an attack that never happened and most likely was never planned, the insider said. Pretty funny on that side. And then with that too, like with these claims, apparently there's also these insider reports that Trump has apparently told Middle East leaders that if he is assassinated, or not Middle East leaders, he's told leaders that if he's assassinated, they should remove Iran from the face of the earth. Obviously concerning with all the nuclear talk we've been having these days. Glenn Greenwald aptly points out Trump's instinct for self-preservation is usually very strong, but nothing could motivate Israel to want to assassinate him more than this statement. So, I mean, I don't know. We'll come back to this idea of like the different possibilities if something like this were to happen. But it is worth at least mentioning that, like, when I'm bringing this up, I'm by no means trying to. It may seem like I'm kind of poo-pooing the idea that Iran would want to assassinate him, or that they maybe even would have certain capabilities of doing so at certain times. No, I'm definitely not doing that. If anything, it's actually like they have every reason to want to. It totally makes sense. The United States the United States military, like Trump's administration took out the previous Khamenei and is now the son of that Khamenei. So it's kind of like you literally put assassinating world leader on the board, like on the table here, and you didn't win this. It's like the old saying, you come for the king, you should get the head, but it's like, or make sure you get the head. It's like, it actually doesn't even apply here because like even then the next person takes over and it happens to be his kid, and it doesn't even matter if you get the head. He's fucking pissed too. So, anyway, point being is that I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if they were cooking up assassination attempts. The idea they would do it in Turkey, though, does seem ridiculous, considering, their relations with Turkey. Turkey hasn't been one that's gotten in the mix of all this. They've kind of been this third party. So Iran isn't Israel. They don't attack, friendly nations for no fucking reason other than the fact that maybe a couple baddies might be there. So that wouldn't really make sense for Iran to carry out such an attempt over in Turkey, given the U.S.-Turkey relationship and the Turkey-Iran relationship. And that, I don't know, Iran aren't just shitty retards like that, I guess, at least not to that degree like Israel is. But continuing on, this kind of I think is cause to take a little bit of a look back at previous occasions. Just recently, we missed it on this show. We missed the 2-year anniversary. It was almost a month ago, so like a day short of a month ago. It's August 12th right now. I believe it's July 13th is 2024 is Butler, unless I got that wrong, but I know I'm pretty dang on it. And it was just, a month ago. It was, the 2-year anniversary of the attempt on Trump's life. At least that's what we believe it is, or most of us. I figured here's a fun little meme to kind of, to reflect on it. It says, me trying to make small talk. It says, do you think it's just a coincidence Tucker warned Trump that if he didn't pick Vance, the intel agencies would assassinate him? And then after Butler, Trump picked Vance 2 days later. What a weird little coincidence, right? Makes you wonder, is that true? Did he really pick Vance 2 days later? Did Tucker really warn Trump that if he did pick Vance, intel agencies would assassinate him? Well, yeah, that's actually exactly what happened. Another such example, a perfect opportunity to use something like Grok. I very rarely would recommend it, but for just a quick little, fact check on something minor like this. Here you go. Tucker Carlson's June 2024 phone call to Trump explicitly cautioned that choosing alternatives like Marco Rubio or Doug Burgum would give intel agencies incentive to assassinate him to install a preferred leader, as reported by the New York Times based on sources briefed on the convo, which, sure, there's plenty of people at that time. You got to remember, at that time, JD was kind of a fucking nobody. So now you have Tucker being like, oh, here's this guy, JD Vance. He'd be great to make you assassination proof, at this time when there had been no assassination attempts. Feels a little weird, a little odd. And 2 days later, JD Vance. So just seems weird to me, especially because it's like, if you are trying to pick an assassination proof guy, really, JD Vance? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I do know that he has, like, in the past, like, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 years-ish, he has sort of tried to position himself as the cutting edge of like dissident right sort of thinking, and like being maybe forward thinking when it comes to things like being anti-neocon, trying to make himself trying to be like one of us, essentially. But if you have any more than, if you have like the memory of a goldfish, if you remember the political creature that was Vance before he kind of molted into that, before he grew the beard, the man before that, it's like, well, he was like the never Trumper. He was kind of a political homo. He's kind of had a little bit of almost a lefty sensibilities in some way for a period of time. Is he really the assassination proof, or is that the fucking chameleon that you can say, oh, you're assassination proof, and like kinda sort of like maybe fool some fucking retards? I don't know. What do you guys think? And it is also true that 2 days later Vance was picked. I can lay it out for you, but I think here's someone who probably laid out even better. I know many people sometimes go, why you always give Tucker so much shit? Well, it's stuff like this. Nick Fuentes lays it out perfectly, and this will come back full circle. We can get into our next segment, into the Polymarket stuff, but all this shit is connected. Here's Nick Fuentes laying it all out.
Palantir is a creation of the CIA. Palantir was funded by In-Q-Tel, which is a CIA venture capital arm. CIA was Palantir's only customer for 8 years. Peter Thiel founded Palantir. That is where he gets all his money. Peter Thiel used his money from Palantir to fund J.D. Vance. Peter Thiel got J.D. Vance all of his jobs in Silicon Valley, funded his Senate campaign. He was responsible for Vance becoming the vice presidential pick. And Tucker is a huge Vance booster. Tucker boosted Vance when he was running for Senate. Tucker boosted Vance when he was in contention for the vice presidential nomination. In 2016, J.D. Vance voted for Evan McMullin, a CIA agent. Tucker's other best friend is Joe Kent, a CIA agent. Joe Kent was also funded by Peter Thiel. Tucker Carlson's nephew, Charles, works for Palantir. Tucker Carlson's son, Buckley, works for J.D. Vance. Tucker Carlson's father, Dick, worked for the CIA. So very obviously, something is going on. This is a clique. This is a little gang. They think we're stupid. They think we don't know. David Sachs is going to be J.D. Vance's chief of staff. They want Vance to be president in 2028. And if or when that happens, Vance is going to let Palantir get all of the defense contracts having to do with AI, having to do with big data, having to do with surveillance. And that's going to make Palantir one of the most valuable companies in the world. It will enrich Peter Thiel. It will enrich Alex Karp. It will enrich Joe Lonsdale, who's a co-founder of Palantir also, part of PayPal Mafia with that whole gang. And Tucker is a part of that. How can you not see that? And it's not innocent. Every time he's asked, what is Palantir? He goes, I don't know. Yeah, you do. Peter Thiel is his best friend. Of course, you know all about Thiel. You know all about Palantir. You know all about Vance. And you lie. You lie through your teeth because you are a part of some clique. I don't know what it is precisely, but he's always in the Middle East, in Qatar and Saudi Arabia. He has some weird relationship with Russia and Serbia. And all of his friends are in the CIA. And then he wants to do yet another show saying that I'm suspicious because I didn't get charged. Yeah, you're right, fag. I didn't get charged. They only froze my bank account for half a year. They only put me on a do not board.
Now, on that, too, people are bringing up the J6 thing. People do, I'm believing that's what he's referring to, the not being charged thing. Now, I will say there is one little clip where it does sound like he is directly calling for violence. I will say that fucking glows. I mean, I don't really know. I mean, I've never really dug deep enough to really make me dispel that, whatever the fuck was going on there, whatever vibes those are that I got from that. I don't know. Nothing's really dispelled whatever the fuck that is. That still, to me, is like a glow. But so far as the rest, when it comes to Nick, I mean, yeah, he has moved weird in a lot of different ways. But when it comes to actually, I don't know, substantive things, when it comes, as I've pointed out with Tucker, or as Fuentes just pointed out with Tucker, all the different things. You go into his CIA dad, and you go to his fucking son who was working for JD, all the different fucking money games going on here. I mean, these are things that you point to, and these are things that are indicators. These are parts of a larger pattern. It doesn't necessarily mean one thing, but they are indicative, at least, one could say. If you see enough of these pop up, you start going, huh, Nick does, frankly, just doesn't have as many of those. He has moved weird. I'll 100% admit that. I've definitely not liked some of the ways he's, kind of moved about and been kind of like, what the fuck is going on here? So I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if he's controlled op either. So I just wanted to point that out. But one reason I paused here is what I really wanted to point out is a lot of people do bring up the idea that he wasn't charged as indicative of that he is a glowy. But it's also on the flip side, from my digging into these sorts of things, it's also just as indicative. So this is one of these things to keep yourself humble in your line of thinking. That's also just as indicative that he's not a Fed, because that's also a practice to do that to people, to fucking not charge people. Be like, J6 would be a good example. If you were, say, Nick Fuentes and a bunch of people went in the general vicinity of, let's say they all do the same exact literal thing, and there's a group of 10 of them or something, and then 9 of them are fucking, nobody who, whatever, just followers of Fuentes, and then one is Fuentes. If they lock up every one of those guys except for Fuentes, what does that do? What does that do to normal people? What do they do? They're doing what we're doing right now, where you go, you look really suspicious. That right there is fed jacking. That is what feds do. They will fed jack at you. So it's all they will do things to make you look like a Fed just to fuck with you. That is part of the game. So I just want to point that out real quick. Now I will say I don't have the clip on hand, but what seems to be literally calling for illegal acts, maybe even debatably violence, that one did glow. I will give you that. But the charging aspect of it that many people bring up, that he didn't get charged, would have Fed, not necessarily. If anything, they can also point to that he's not a Fed and the Feds are fucking with him.
No-fly list for an entire year. They only subpoenaed me, all my documents, text messages, phone calls, and deposed me in the J6 subcommittee. They only banned me from Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. They only banned me from PayPal and Stripe, banned me from Bank of America, Chase Bank, U.S. Bank, Fifth Third Bank, Inland Bank. They only banned me from Delta and American Airlines. Other than that, you're right, nothing happened to me. Yeah. I'm totally suspicious. They never charged me. They only did all those things. Yeah, because I don't know. I guess the CIA recruited me when I was 17 in high school to go against Ben Shapiro. And you are totally clean.
The child. It is hilarious when you point that out. If you do look at it from that perspective, once again, juxtaposing this against Tucker, you take somebody like a Fuentes. It's he's in his mid-20s, I think, something like that now. It's so when would the Feds even really had an opportunity to hit him up? I think did he even go to college, or did he do a semester or something? He basically didn't go to college. So there weren't really a whole lot of avenues to where unless he was some sort of CIA kid. But you once again juxtapose this against Tucker Carlson, the literal son of CIA royalty that, during college was fucking hanging out in South America, with freedom fighters. So you're what? Come on. In college, that time where, people, you're kind of renowned for kind of reaching out and touching people, which that's kind of redundant when you're talking about your dad is literally fucking CIA royalty. But let's keep going.
Dad told you didn't get into the CIA, which you applied to 35 years ago. But yeah, I'm the one that's suspicious. Okay, let's go with that. You want to keep barking up that tree? You want to keep the feud going? Yeah, you'll win that argument. Let's see, the 27-year-old live streamer who's banned from everything, or the 60-year-old douchebag whose entire social circle, family is in the CIA, who worked for Rupert Murdoch his entire life, is probably worth $50 million, is friends with multiple foreign governments and travels there all the time. Yeah, that's a winning argument. That's a winning hand. Keep barking up that tree. Surely people will be convinced. You know what? And I just have to expose these people all over again.
And I'm totally with Nick on this one also. One thing I try to point out one of these times recently, in one of these things I was pointing out how Canada's doing, they really do jump on these weird personal attacks while not really attacking substance, which, there is a time and place for those sort of things, but it's very in a weird, clunky sort of way. And they do this Fuentes all the time, where Tucker will just offhandedly be oh, that gay little kid, in just weird, cunty way for no reason, which, if I was to put money in him, I don't know, I guess I lean towards he's probably gay, but it's just one of these things you don't know. It seems bizarre coming from somebody like a Tucker who's known for being personable, and like these are times where he's not even really. It's not even like a beef sort of situation. But anyway, it's just these weird sort of thing. These sort of ways they move, essentially, which I guess when you're on their side, people get like dead to it and they don't notice it. But when you notice it on somebody, you notice it immediately when somebody on the other side. But one takeaway I think from this clip and this general like thread of thought that I'm trying to get at here before we move back into the Butler side of things. I think one thing to take away from this, between the numerous names, Briar, Nick included, Nick, Tucker, JD Vance, Joe Kent, like is a great example of this, is the quote from Albert Pike, the 33-degree Mason. Whenever the people need a hero, we shall supply him. Perfect example of exactly this, what I'm talking about. But continuing on, let's kind of get back to the Butler side of things. Like I said, it recently was this 2-year anniversary of Butler. Here is Helen Comparatori, the widow of Corey Comparatori, the person who tragically perished in this attempt on Trump's life. Whatever this attempt was, who did it, whatever. They're almost 100% certain. I mean, I guess sure there could be crisis act or something, but I'm almost 100% certain this person legitimately died here, and may have been caught up in some silly political games. But let's check in on what she had to say over at News Nation.
Crooks himself remains shrouded in mystery. Authorities still haven't publicly identified a motive for his attempted assassination of President Trump.
You've expressed belief that the gunman, Thomas Crooks, didn't act alone.
I don't believe there was another shooter there, but I believe that he was working with somebody. I believe it was an inside job inside the government somewhere.
And this was political?
Oh, yeah.
Political.
Absolutely. Yep.
Have you seen evidence to that?
Oh, I've been told things, but I've had something that happened with me that just afterwards, and you're starting to put the pieces together, it just made total sense.
What will help give you closure?
When the people who put this all together that day are caught and it comes out.
So if you had a message for President Trump, what would it be?
Just to don't forget us and remember what we went through that day. You know, we're still here and we need answers.
Helen Comparator says it was a year before the Secret Service actually reached out to her. The questions that she did ask, she says they didn't answer them fully, and she's now pleading, reaching out to President Trump, hoping that he will intervene, apply pressure, so she can get answers as to what happened here.
All right, let's check in on Ken Silva's most recent reporting on this. For those who aren't aware, he wrote the book on this. In my opinion, I wish I could remember. It was like Trump assassination plots or something. Whatever. Look up Ken Silva. I feel bad I can't think of it. But let's go over the Trump assassination plots. There you go. It says believe it's like what the investigation missed or something. It's a subtitle. Is like an ode to Roger Charles's book on the Oklahoma City bombing. But anyways, here he is continuing his coverage on it. It says FBI has released more Thomas Crooks records in response to Judicial Watch's FOIA lawsuit. This is revealing new details about Thomas's May 2024 hospitalization. It says a neighbor told agents that Crooks left in an ambulance one night and seems to have been gone for an entire 2 weeks. All right. So let's dig a little bit through this one. It says here's one of the records that they received from the FOIA. It says sometime earlier in 2024, redacted, was uncertain of the exact time period, but it was night and Crooks was not wearing a jacket, so possibly springtime. Redacted observed an ambulance arrive at Crooks' residence. The flashing red lights got her attention, so she watched through her window to see what was happening. The paramedics went into the house and later exited the house without anyone on the gurney. That's weird. I mean, okay, I'd like to hear from you guys in a bit, because I only have one anecdotal example ever dealing with an ambulance, but I'll come back to that in a moment. Following the paramedics was Crooks, who entered the back of the ambulance with them, and the ambulance departed. Redacted had spoken with another neighbor, and they discussed that after that night, Crooks' bedroom light had remained off for approximately 2 weeks. When Crooks remained home, I'm doing the lisp thing a lot today. I don't know what's going on. When Crooks returned home, Redacted had occasion to speak with him when some mail had been delivered to the wrong house, and she asked Crooks about it, and he told her that he had been dehydrated. Okay, so she asked him later about it. He says he'd been dehydrated, so he disappeared for like roughly 2 weeks, which I guess we could say maybe the light thing, because the indication here is they're going based on the bedroom light, which I don't know. There's a person literally watching the bedroom light at all times. Doubtful. They said it's been off for 2 weeks, but they didn't see him for 2 weeks, and then they came back and they said it was because they're dehydrated. That sounds super fucking bizarre to me. Now, my anecdotal thing, my wife had a seizure once that I had to get an ambulance involved for, and yeah, I mean we went out on a gurney. I followed the ambulance to the hospital. That was about it. Like, it was pretty. I don't know. I mean, you would think that they would almost for liability reasons make you, maybe, I don't know, I guess maybe if it was like a mental health thing, maybe they wouldn't need a gurney. I know I'm anyone that's ever had any interactions with the ambulance, especially if they let you just walk into it with them, I'd be interested to know, because I know even with hospitals, usually they insist that, like, if you're there for like almost any reason whatsoever, they usually a lot of times will insist you leave in I guess depending on what it is, really, but they're pretty cautious about like making sure usually you leave in like a wheelchair or something. That seems bizarre to me, that if you had an ambulance-worthy sort of event, that you would just be casually walking into the back of the ambulance. All right, let's move on. This is another interesting record from the latest batch. Shows that Crooks interacted with someone at the gun range the day before the Butler shooting. The mystery person apparently had license plates that were of interest to the gun range manager. Says on 7/15/2024. Cellular telephone number redacted, was interviewed at Clairton Sportsman Club. This is in Clairton, Pennsylvania. Also, after reviewing the Clairton Sportsman Club security footage from Friday, 7/12/2024, redacted believes the vehicle driven by the unknown individuals, this is a day before the killing. I did just say that a minute ago, too. Is seen in the rifle range with Thomas Crooks, had redacted tag, conducted open source internet searches, and believes that tag is associated with a redacted. Further, so we're not able to really understand exactly, we get so much redacted here, it's hard to understand, but yeah, like Ken said, for some reason it seems that they thought this was interesting for some reason. I guess they said the person themselves did an open source internet search. Although, like I said, this was the day before, so I guess I could totally get how, like, if you were the owner, the manager of the place, and you found out the person who tried to assassinate the president the day before was there, that maybe you would remember some things. You start thinking it's significant. Now, the idea that he remembers the license plate, let me see. It says, security footage. So maybe the security footage picked up the number. So he may not have necessarily remembered it all like MacGruber style or something like that. All right, let's keep going on. It says yet another juicy record says Thomas 3D printed firearms parts. So here we go. Thomas also uses 3D printer to create Glock frames. This is a excerpt from a larger 302 here. So he was using 3D printed guns. And, I mean, obviously not necessarily for the shooting. Additionally, a Bethel Park High School official told the FBI about the infamous BlackRock commercial, revealing that it was apparently the result of a chance phone call. The official also said Thomas volunteered for the part. So let's dig through this one. In a summary of his knowledge of Crooks, redacted in a summary of his knowledge of Crooks, noted no known bullying, no known serious disciplinary actions, near perfect attendance, extremely high grades, high SAT scores, and Thomas Crooks' attendance at Steele Center, a vocational tech school. Redacted noted a single incident of discipline in Crooks' 7th grade year for chewing gum. Redacted is aware of an ADHD diagnosis, which Crooks was not known to take medication. Redacted might be able to locate search history from Crooks' high school laptop account and will alert TFO Redacted if that information is available. Redacted provided information on the origin of the BlackRock commercial where Thomas Crooks is pictured. Redacted described this commercial as a chance phone call received by, and then you get a whole bunch of redacted, and pitched the idea of the school district being used in the commercial. Crooks was in the commercial after he volunteered for the part. So, interesting. Now, I gave this a retweet. If you want to go check out the rest of the records over on my page at Tower Gang Jose. But continuing on, here's a piece over from the New York Post I figured was worth digging into. It's been sitting in the bookmark folder for a little bit. Here is Secret Service member was Googling rooftop location of Trump's would-be assassin when shots rang out in Butler, Pennsylvania. So let's dig a little bit of this. Curious what that's all about. Secret Service counter-drone operator futilely searched the internet for the location of the rooftop President Trump's would-be assassin was spotted on as shots rang out at the July 13th, 2024 campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, according to a Department of Homeland Security Inspector General report released Thursday. The report concluded Secret Service missed multiple opportunities to detect, prevent, and disrupt deranged gunman Thomas Crook's attempted assassination of Trump, including shocking communication failures that resulted in the president's protective detail never being warned that an armed man had climbed onto the AGR, the American Glass Research International Complex's roof just 155 yards from stage. And it really is like, you really should, like, if I would highly recommend reading Ken's book. It really does go to pains to really display how ridiculous it was. That building was just completely not watched, and all the other goofy, suspicious stuff around that specific building. At 6:09, local law enforcement called the Secret Service. Dang it, I need to get these ad blockers. Sorry. 6:09, local law enforcement called the Secret Service and Pennsylvania State Police communications room, warning them of a suspicious person on the AGR complex's roof, according to the damning DHS report. However, the Secret Service communications room supervisor and the agency's counter-drone operator did not ask for the AGR complex's location, did not immediately identify it as a risk, and the supervisor did not even recall learning that the suspicious person was on the roof, because he had delegated communications about the suspicious person to the counter-drone operator because it was a busy time on Secret Service radios, and the counter-drone operator was sitting near him and offered to help, the 64-page report continued. Not knowing where the rooftop was situated relative to the rally site, the Secret Service counter-drone operator apparently resorted to Google. So they're doing on-the-fly Google searches to figure out where to go to find this guy. Just cartoonish. Instead of asking local law enforcement personnel for the AGR complex's location, the counter-drone operator searched online for it and was still searching when Crooks fired his first shots, report determined. I wonder if it's one of those things where he just didn't want to admit he didn't know. They're like, oh, it's over on the red, and he's like, yeah, totally. And he's like, what the fuck is that? I'll Google it real quick. At 6:11, just 2 minutes after Secret Service was informed a gunman was on the roof of the building, Crooks fired 8 shots at Trump, grazing the president's ear, wounding others, and killing one rally attendee. Ultimately, although members of local law enforcement communications room were increasingly concerned by the presence of a suspicious individual as early as 5:42 p.m., the report continued Secret Service communications room personnel did not identify Crooks as an urgent threat before he fired shots. Moreover, Secret Service decision makers responsible for protecting President Trump while on stage at the Butler event were not made aware of Crooks' presence at any time. The agency's failure to establish a joint communications room with local law enforcement, which was receiving reports about a suspicious person at the rally later identified as Crooks, resulted in 102 radio transmissions about the gunman going unheard by Secret Service personnel. At 5:42 p.m., radio transmission from local law enforcement warning, we had a younger white male, long hair, lurking around the AGR building. He was viewed with a rangefinder sighting the stage. We lost sight of him, was among several increasingly frantic communications that went unheard by Secret Service. I have someone on the roof with white shorts, local cops radioed at 6:08 p.m. He's armed. I saw him. He's laying down, an officer radioed at 6:11 p.m. 3 minutes later, just moments before Crooks opened fire, followed by, you need to deploy to the AGR building. Male on the roof with a long gun. Shots fired. Secret Service received only 5 phone calls and 3 text messages about Crooks, according to the report. As a result, Secret Service members did not alert Trump's protective detail about concerns of a suspicious person, the findings concluded. The report also found Trump's campaign staff waved off Secret Service from positioning trucks between the AGR building and the stage ahead of the rally over concerns it would block cameras. On July 12th, 2024, the site agent counterpart told us she proposed placing the trucks between the AGR complex and the stage, but Protectee staff denied the request because the trucks would be too close to President Trump's press shot, the DHS report found. The site agent counterpart then proposed, isn't it ironic? It literally was they didn't block it because they didn't want to block the shot. Isn't that funny? Like, just how they can be played both ways, a little bit of a double entendre there. The site agent counterpart then proposed moving the trucks to a nearby location instead, which would block line of sight from a different area. Protectee staff agreed. Crooks was shot and killed by law enforcement at the rally shortly after he opened fire. The Secret Service did not immediately respond to the post request for comment. So just kind of just really displaying how inept they were, inept to an almost seemingly intentional degree. But kind of finishing off our coverage of all things Butler, I thought it would be kind of interesting to take a moment and just kind of think about the current situation, the current dialectic, I guess you could say, the current path tree that has been formed by this current situation that we have with these, theoretical, hypothetical assassination situations. So let's just say theoretically, let's run through the options. Let's say another Butler such event happens again. How would this play out? Let's go through. Let's say it actually they succeed. They succeed. They take him out. What do we get? We get Vance, and we get a ramping up of the Iran war. And hell, we even get a situation where Vance, despite his anti-war or perceived anti-war leanings or the way he's framed himself as such, you give him a legitimate hey, they took out Trump. Now he has legitimate, even the anti-war guys would be more sympathetic to the warmongering of a Vance, or slight more warmongering of Vance, I guess you could say. So we get this war with Vance, we get this war with Iran, and we get Vance, Thiel's fleshlight in place. What happens if they miss? I think we very well could end up with I know there's all sorts of talks about how the Trump administration has completely floundered, completely gone to shit. Now, I'm not entirely convinced that a Trump assassination, an actual, let's say he survived, a Butler sort of thing again. I'm not entirely convinced that would turn the tide for him, the actual legitimate organic inertia. I don't think that would give him, the love of the people again, but perhaps. And at the very least, I wouldn't be the least surprised if those that lurk above us in shadow think that it would. So I think there's a strong possibility, whether it actually manifests in this, I think the people above us could see this as a if this, then that. If survive, then Trump third term. And here you go. Here's Trump talking about this very recently over on Real America's Voice.
A lot of people get it. So let me put an idea in your head, okay? Because it's so hard to get the Senate to do anything. Now they're on recess. They don't get anything done if they never get the Save America Act done. You have the right to declare a national security emergency for elections. And the Supreme Court ruled in 1983 under Reagan that INS versus Chadha, that if you declare a national security emergency as the President of the United States, they can't challenge it. It can only be overturned by a 2/3 vote of both houses of Congress. So if you do this in the next month, we will get photo ID, proof of citizenship, and a limit to mail-in ballots. And you don't even need the Senate vote. Happened.
Okay, I'll leave it at that.
All right, we'll leave it at that. So let me finish with a couple of ridiculous.
So, I mean, not very forceful, but this guy very much bloviating over the idea of a third term and how we could possibly go about doing it. This is a thing Trump has talked about quite a bit, and still to this day. I think I played a clip for you recently, of that same sentiment. Another thing of Trump saying just that, but here he is saying, let's just say stranger things have happened. I'll leave it at that, and that's essentially evoking emergency powers for elections, which. Okay, great. We've happened upon this territory. This is where we are now in America. Isn't that great? But with that, let's roll into the chat, say some more good mornings. Then after that, we'll get into our last segment of the day, Secret History of Polymarket, Part 7, finally finishing off our dig into that. So let's check in you guys. Nevsky again saying supposedly a lot of these Moroccans were released from prison to invade Spain. And that's why Moroccan police beat them when they went back to Morocco. Okay, that would make sense too. That hey, get the fuck out of here, going over to Spain. Good morning, Daddy Fax says good morning. Let's go from Kansas. Good morning. Good morning. Nevsky says Netanyahu knows that Trump is the only leader in the world that doesn't hate the entire nation of Israel, and you're definitely onto something there, Nevsky. He's one of the last remaining leaders that does not hate them with a fucking passion. What else we got? Here's Tom 33 says, I'm not trying to defend Tucker, but I do think Fuentes would be 100% in their club if they would let him, but they won't, and he's mad. I actually don't agree with that at all. I don't get that impression because they have attempted to bring him in their quote unquote club, whatever that is. Or I guess it depends on what you mean by that. If you mean by if you're saying that Fuentes would be in their glowy club, or you just mean that like a social thing and that he's just mad that he's not part of their clique, I guess. I don't know. I don't really have enough of a strong. I don't really know if he just wants to be part of the clique. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if he is compromised, but who knows? Maybe he really is about that life and he wouldn't. I definitely have my suspicions, so I do lean towards you are probably correct. Maybe, at least in the. Although I think if he is part of something, he's obviously part of something else. Like if there is glowing occurring here, it's like these are like different glowing factions, I would assume. So these things can coexist. Like he can not be part of their thing and be a separate thing. There's so many different factions moving about. Hell, even within the same factions, there's divisions. So this is why a lot of people get all caught up on Tucker, oh, he's sort of anti-war. You're like, not really. You kind of listen to him talk about China sometimes. You're like, what the fuck is he talking about? He very much is, if you look at the big-headed CIA, the sort of foreign policy plans they've pushed in the past, or that they've endorsed. There seems to be a little bit of a split between the CIA between the idea of using Israel as a proxy nation to kind of control the Middle East, and that way the U.S. can be unencumbered to pursue other ventures and maintain its hegemony across the world. Or is this something that we really want to go head over heels for Israel and let that be the main focus? So sometimes you may see a situation where oh, we both want the same thing. He's clearly on my team. And you're like, not necessarily. There's a third option. He's not necessarily on your team, which I would say to that. I'm not saying that if Tucker or one of these people that I've said, is a little suspicious, if they agree with you, that doesn't mean you have to be fuck you. But just keep that in mind. Just don't let yourself get taken over by the cult of personality aspect of it all. Don't allow yourself to any way, shape, or form outsource your thinking to them or really anyone. So, myself included. I'm just a big old dum-dum. Don't outsource your thinking. Do it yourself. Here's Tom clarifying words. Says, I don't think Fund is a fad, but he's been their unwitting asset by being such a fag all the time. Maybe. I don't know. Northside, he said he's gay, which I think that's in response to my thing where I was kind of giving Tucker and Candace shit about it. Yes, I know. As I said, he is. It's the way they go about it. It's the it'll be it's a substitute for some sort of argument or something, and it's just weird. Which there's times to not have an argument, just make fun of somebody, but they'll do it in the times where you're like, well, I was kind of wanting he brought up a good point there, and you didn't give any retort except for you're gay. You're like, I know that only works when it's I don't really, I think whatever is going on here is a joke. When you're like, no, I actually want to hear the response. It doesn't quite float the same. And you're like, he's gay. You're like, okay, maybe he is, but he brings up a good point. Could you maybe do something other than just call him names? All right. Here's Matza says 6 times from the ER in hospital. Have never left in a wheelchair, even for spinal column injections. So you've never left left in a wheelchair. Now I'm curious about getting into a. Have you ever gone in an ambulance? And did they ever let you just walk into it? That seems weird to me. My interaction, I guess I've only had when my wife was pregnant, and then when she said some seizure stuff, and I haven't really gone there to the ER for anything other than dumb shit. There was a period of time where when I was in the military, you had to go to the ER because you couldn't go to, it was a weird insurance thing. So you would have to go for dumb shit just to get out of work. So you'd be at the ER, be like, I'm sick. And you're like, sorry to waste your time, but it's the only way they'll let me off work. Obviously they didn't wheel me out in a wheelchair, but usually I've usually seen they're usually pretty fucking, here's John Black. Here we go. Here's says, I may have cut my toe off. I walked into the ambulance. I had already stopped the bleeding, and had the nub on ice. They did give me fentanyl, though. I'd already rubbed some dirt on it. Okay, that's surprising. Like with a fucked up toe, like literally cut your toe off, that they just let you walk in. So I was home alone. Otherwise, someone would have taken me to the emergency room. I obviously couldn't drive. It was my left foot. Okay. Never an amber lamp, says Matzo Balls. So Tom says Tuck is only anti-war when it's obvious we don't stand to gain anything. Exactly. All right, let's get back into our coverage of Polymarket. I have a little bit of a longer clip for you that's going to kind of tie in the previous pieces we've done on this, because we've been doing an ongoing reading of this. But here is Whitney Webb over on Unlimited Hangout. I don't know if this will get me for copyright, because I'm assuming they probably have a YouTube channel. But hey, Whitney, Mark Goodwin, any of you people watching this, just know that like this is just kind of the perfect clip to kind of tie everything we've already talked about together. And I'm very much trying to promote your stuff as well, at least the ideas. So please don't hit me for a copyright thing. But if this when you watch this on playback, just jumps right into the live reading, But either way, here is a nice clip kind of tying kind of like a summary in some of the bigger stuff we've already talked about. So a little bit of a recap of sorts of what we've already talked about, which I think is kind of useful. A lot of names have been thrown around, a lot of acronyms. So good to get a little bit of a refresher before we do the little bit of the read through and finish it out. So here you go.
Let's go back into the founding of Polymarket, right? So the official narrative that we've already discussed as being bunk is that Mr. Shane is, COVID's happening, it's lockdowns, there's so much uncertainty. It's the best time for prediction markets, and I'm just so passionate about prediction markets. I'm going to will it into existence by being in my bathroom, all alone in my bathroom, and just coding and I made Polymarket in my bathroom. And just, it's just, I don't know why that's the narrative they want to sell so bad, because it's like, dude, bathroom, because I mean,
literally stinks.
Well, it used to be like the garage, right? We built this company in our garage, and now they've gone to we can't do the garage anymore. So now it's the bathroom.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just so weird. Anyway, so obviously we know that he had all these connections, particularly the people that sort of bridged the U.S. Israeli crypto tech scene.
Yeah.
And basically had remolded or was working in the process of going from token union, which kind of became irrelevant when Ethereum was moving
to proof of stake.
They didn't really need what
the Ethereum proof of stake debugging in the code was done with Antithesis, which is a DC based Palantir subcontractor that was in stealth the whole time.
So some more teal connections there.
The chain
and so basically he has all these connections anyway when he is creating it. And it's not, we didn't put this in part 1, it'll be in part 2, but there's an interview that he gave in 2020 where he said a lot of the passion for the creation of Polymarket from him and his team was DARPA's policy analysis market.
Right. Yeah.
And even though he's alone in his bathroom building this company ostensibly with no connections, as he says, he somehow raises $4 million just 3 months after the company launches. And the main people backing him are Coinbase's earliest employees. So remember, Coinbase takes Augur and sunsets it. So these people that they left Coinbase, but they were still connected to it. So one example is One Confirmation, which is created by one of Coinbase's earliest employees, Nick Tomeno. And he, right away invests in ETH and also invests in Coinbase right back in the company he left. And then, dumps money into Polymarket.
And interestingly, Polymarket uses USDC. 50% of all profits from USDC's issuer circle goes to Coinbase because they're the main investor. So it's another.
And then another Coinbase's literal earliest employee, Olaf Carlson he also is the main investor in there. So the Coinbase bros. And there's another Coinbase guy that's there also in 2020 in the seed round. So all these Coinbase guys got in really early with Shane and Polymarket. And $4 million, and then Coinbase on the other side sort of sunsets their competitor for them. And by that time, Joey Krug had left.
Right.
And
where did he go?
In Founders Fund.
Oh,
Peter
Founders
Thiel's Founders Fund.
Oh,
and
wow.
then they end up leading one of the series rounds for Polymarket pretty early on.
Wow.
Yeah, so...
yeah, there was that whole thing where he was like, you know, they were messaging each other because Copeland was like, I don't like Augur, and, you know, there's a lot of issues with it, but hey, and you know, I have all these other ideas, Polymarket's going to do better, and Krug's like, listen, I'm a big investor guy now. I don't really do Augur anymore. I'm like an advisor for like things like Ampleforth and whatever. If you make $5 million a month, you know, in volume, like hit me up and then I'll invest. Sure as shit, they hit the $5 million a month. Krug, he joined Founders Fund in 2023. He leads the Series A, and
but basically,
the rest is history.
Yeah. So basically, since we're kind of running out of time here, it's Augur was an attempt to resurrect Pam.
Yeah.
It failed, but true to the Napsterization model, we have Augur being the predecessor to Polymarket, just like Napster was to Spotify. And literally, they have said this.
Yes.
Krug has said this.
Yes.
He
Copeland has said this.
Yeah, they have said this.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, it's important to note here, and I think the last point I want to end with here is about what the significance of this is, and a lot of that part 2 is going to be sort of necessary to unpack in its entirety, this idea. But what was PAM? PAM was part, or the policy analysis market, what these guys have been trying to resurrect. It was part of TIA. And TIA, Total Information Awareness, the goal was not just to see everything going on in the present, and find anomalies, find the bad guys in a sea of data, of everyone's data in mass surveillance. It was to predict. It was pre-crime. It was predictive policing on a massive scale, and not in pretty much every ambit of human life you can think of, right? And so Polymarket, because, you know, the market knows all of these Polymarket odds. Just like with Pam, the odds are there to help feed the pre-crime engine. This is what will happen. Or this will not. And we know that Polymarket bets can be rigged, and that Polymarket itself puts out misinformation sometimes to make trades swing one way or the other, and that insider trading is a huge problem. And the context of that, and as it's meant to interface with what is now Palantir, is really unsettling. And lo and behold, if you look it up, dude, it's there. Polymarket and Palantir are partners. They are partnered, and they work together for the market integrity. So this has already happened. And this is the privatized panopticon.
All right, did you guys catch all those names? You remember that we just talked about those in the previous segment? A little weird how all these things tie back together. But with that, thank you, Whitney Webb. Please don't hit me for a copyright strike, but that was the perfect clip to kind of wrap up everything we've talked about. It's a lot of stuff. It's way too much to keep track of. It's also sanitized with the acronyms and the bureaucratic nature of it all, and the financial, jargon and whatever. So, all the fucking nerd speak. So it's useful to kind of remind yourselves of this. But with that, let's dig into the final segment. Let's dig into this final reading of Whitney Webb's piece over here with Mark Goodwin, The Secret History of Polymarket, Part 1. There is, I don't know if the Part 2 is already out. Obviously, you guys can go read that on your own. We will not read the Part 2 one, so this is, I guess, a little bit of a teaser if you want to keep digging. But even within this just first part, there's just so much. But let's dig into the Napsterization of everything. That's our final reading here. It goes, the story has been carefully crafted over the past few years that a young college dropout named Shane Copland, after being inspired by Austrian economist and Robin Hansen, founded Polymarket in mid-2020 completely alone, and then built his company in his bathroom. As detailed extensively in this article, there is plenty of background info and key data points that have been clearly left out of the story in order for this particular narrative of Shane Copland's and Polymarket's origins to take hold. This narrative bears many similarities to the stories that have been woven regarding the origins of major big tech firms, whose founders Copland explicitly hoped to emulate. In many of those cases, those founders are said to have built their companies in their garage or something similarly humble, only for it to trickle out years later that their company's success stories were only made possible by funding provided by U.S. intelligence or similarly shady organization and groups. In the case of Copland, despite efforts made to obfuscate his past, he was clearly immersed in networks within the cryptocurrency agency with ties to Israel and Israel intelligence well before he founded Polymarket. During his time, he talked about the Napsterization of finance, only to have the venture capital firm of Napster Sean Parker and crypto prediction market pioneer Joey Krug to be among the first backers of Polymarket. Krug claims that Polymarket was successful where others were not because of its preferable user interface. In reality, it was Copland's connections to networks he developed while running Token Union combined with his careful study and emulation of Sean Parker of Napster, Travis Kalanick of Uber, and Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook that made Copland and his company a success. If there is a pattern emerging from this disruption nexus of prediction market makers, peer-to-peer data pioneers, and social network founders, perhaps is their braven disinterest in upholding the law during their respective incubation and early growth periods. Due to the proximity of these businesses to the ideas that stem from the likes of DARPA and the U.S. intelligence community, it is arguable that these companies were silently given a free pass to build where others could not, and quickly gained an insurmountable market share from being the first movers in an otherwise illegal market. But regardless of a hypothetical state-sponsored get-out-of-jail-free card, these generations of Silicon Valley's best and brightest quite literally changed the limits of their industry by changing the rules of their regulators. Parker's Napster was blatantly illegal, as was Kalanick's Uber, and yet both models survived in their own way. Uber stopped paying fines on behalf of drivers and started lobbying local, state, and federal government, while the Napster founder funded and advised Spotify into becoming the largest music streaming service in the world. A willingness to break their rules while building a company combined with teaming up with the right people, invariably tied to the military, intelligence, or both, is the recipe that Copland studied and then followed in building Polymarket. As both Krug and Copland have alluded, Polymarket's path seems closer to the Napster into Spotify model, in which Augur built the infrastructure and demonstrated the market demand for the product that Polymarket is now delivering. The similarities between the companies of this nexus are immense. Young founders were raided by the FBI. The companies had employees who boasted working, likely collaborating with the intelligence community. They started as companies that potentially offered illegal services. They were advised and founded by the Teal, Conway, and Pincus network at a young age. They rode waves of political favors and regulatory tide shifts toward eventual legitimacy. And finally, many of them seem to be awfully similar to the same family of controversial projects once housed at DARPA. Another argument to be made is that the government, whether demonstrated by actions of various legislative agencies, court systems, and law enforcement, was only feigning resistance to these founders and companies. Under the cover of fines, raids, and court summons, these intelligence and military-backed technology companies were painted as outsiders fighting against the legacy systems, while in actuality pursuing the very interests of the Pentagon and the intelligence community. Indeed, as this article makes clear, the military and intelligence community has long been fans of prediction markets, whether PAM, Augur, or now Polymarket. With Polymarket's odds now capable of moving the stock market, manipulating the media, and even influencing elections, the real architects of the explosion in prediction markets have a new tool that allows them not only unprecedented predictive power, but also unprecedented abilities to insider trade while they seed select narratives and alter our digital reality. As will be explored in part 2, the fact that both Joey Krug and Shane Copland were inspired specifically by Robin Hanson's work on Futurkey, which proposes using prediction markets as a system of public governance, is highly significant. Perhaps even more significant is the fact Futurarchy is already taking hold in significant ways under the current administration. A turn of events is particularly jarring considering that the president's son is both invested and using Polymarket. As broached here but explored in greater detail in the next part of this investigation, Polymarket's success heralds a new era for both finance and for governance, one where the house always wins. With that, let's roll a chat. Checking you guys. Going to get out of here. That's all we have for today. Other than our outro, I do have a fun outro. Should make you giggle. I will warn you, it is not safe for work. Big time today. Warning, kids in the car. You're listening to this on speaker at work. Fair warning. You have been warned. But it should make you giggle. But let's roll through the chat again. Here's Tom33. Says, not gonna lie, I feel like I haven't retained much of this Polymarket stuff. Tends to be a case with these divided up explorations of topics. Yeah, it is what it is. I do like these, at least for my own purposes. So, and it does seem to be you guys tend to kind of like them. I usually get semi-positive reviews from you guys from these deep digs. I dig them. They're like kind of keeps me honest in a sense of like sticking with it. Of like I need to do a deep dig on something, as opposed to being like, oh, I'll just read this on my own time and then I end up forgetting about it and it gets buried. Kind of keeps me a little more honest to something I want to dig into. So I don't know, I dig it. But yeah, it is a lot. It is very. It is hard to keep track of all the different things, but hey, I mean, it's an immense topic. It is what it is. Good morning, Dylan, saying F Trump. Good morning to you. Good morning, JC, saying, oh my God, hi y'all. Good morning, good morning. Here's JC again, says, I remember people like Robin Hanson being big influencers in the libertarian futurist online space 15 years ago. Hanson, Teal, SpaceX, the whole sea-setting thing, all the huge psyop. Yeah, it really is. Like, man, Satanism, the inversion as above, so below sort of stuff. I mean, this really is. I mean, you look at this and it's like, I almost feel like this is like in some ways, you're like, oh, is this an indictment of libertarianism? Is this an indictment of agorism? Like, I mean, I was seeing so many like the elements of agorism. Like, for example, with Napster, like I think IP's like fake and gay. So even that was kind of like, and I think a lot of people do innately kind of think that as well. So this was kind of like the sneak in to where they were able to like sort of do an illegal thing, and then but like no one really cared. It's like essentially anarcho-tyranny, but I think the lesson to be taken from that is obviously, for one, that's the evil side of it. That's the inversion of like that's like essentially the inversion of agorism. That's what I'm getting at. Like what a lot of these guys are doing, like the flagrantly like kind of disregarding the law. Well, not flagrantly, doing it to the degree to which they can handle it. I mean, it helps when you have the government on your side. If you're like, ooh, we're breaking the law, but they're totally, checks and balances, whatever the fuck. But either way, it's still, to some degree, it is a little bit of a proof of concept that like, you can kind of, if you are pushing limits and if you don't cage yourself by the, within the confines of like, oh no, that's illegal. Like, don't get me wrong. If something's illegal, you should recognize that and go, that means attached to the specific action, there is some sort of possible consequence if caught, and then you should then balance that against the corresponding, possible benefit. If the benefit outweighs the cost, then, your answer has been made there. Unfortunately, a lot of people's minds get broken by the idea of legality. So this is essentially, in sorts, the state utilizing that very same technique. Because I kind of see these sorts of creatures, these characters, the Teals of the world, let's be real, they're the fucking state. That is the fucking state. That dude is basically synonymous with the fucking CIA. Like he said it himself. Bug fight. I didn't know you were in rehab. Bug fights. Oh yeah, you know what? Yeah, I did remember you were in rehab. Never mind. It says I didn't get to go to rehab this time like I did in my 20s. Or is there another guy that's in rehab too, or is that you, Bug fights? It was you, Bug fights. Hope things are going well. You said you weren't able to though. Hope you're still staying on the straight and narrow though. Hard stuff. He's bouncing back though, so that's good. Stay strong, brother. Good morning, Fire Pixie. Good morning. Good morning. Tom33, here's a good point. He says, how much you want to bet Ross Ulbricht was contacted by these dudes and said no shortly before they busted the Silk Road? Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder, like, what changed? Why did he get I mean, although I say what changed, you're like, I don't know. Maybe nothing changed. Maybe the hypocrisy was getting at these people, as Ross was in jail, as they're like doing all the same shit he's doing in similar sort of ways, kind of. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's something to that. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. Tom says, I enjoy the deep dives. It's hard to retain when it's broken up so much. I agree in a sense. Although like with these long pieces, it's like there's not really much of an alternative. But I mean, this is only the way we kind of can retain some is by breaking it up. But yeah, I get what you mean. It's a bitch. What else we got here? Oh, we got some jewels from JC. This is sparkles. John Black says, I read the Polymarket article twice and took notes. When he's writing is dense. It is, exactly. Psalms, the sea setting was big retard. I'm glad that's pretty much gone. It is kind of, yeah. All right, we got a quote finishing out here. We got JC says there are no perfect solutions, just trade-offs. So true, brother. So true, King. With that, guys, for those who want to support the show, leave a like, share, subscribe, comment, leave a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. You can find the show on YouTube, Rumble, all the major audio podcatchers, and Twitter as well. On Twitter, that's at TerraGangJose. Everywhere else, it's the No Way Jose podcast. You can, if you want to support the show the best way you can do that with money over at patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. Top left-hand corner. Am I pointing the right side? Yeah, top left-hand corner right here. You got a QR code. It'll bring you the same exact place. And over there, the low level of $2, you get access to early episodes. I do 1 to 2 of those per week. Keep 3 to 4 of them behind the paywall at any given time. Give you guys access to ad-free RSS feed. Give you access to Telegram, the pre-show, the post-show, and video calls, and me and Austin's weekly live call-in show, Already Dead, which goes out on Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Sorry we weren't able to make it yesterday. He was feeling a little bit under the weather. I'm actually about to call him here in a few minutes to see if he's still feeling good, because speaking of those paywalled episodes, we're supposed to be doing a film analysis of the 1973 Wicker Man, I believe. So if he's still feeling up to it, that's what we'll be doing tonight for the patrons, and it'll come out whenever it comes out for the poors. But yeah, I also give a big shout out to the highest level of my Patreon. As a big thank you for their support. My previous Ghost and Tower Gang, at Learn to Toad. Also at Abrogate D's, at ZOVRCK, at _Infant Zeal, Tim Tuttle, at John Klebo, big fan of the show, Torn May, at Wayne Tackless, 100 Car for Kids, No Free Lunch, Jack, Mark Vestibule, Jacob Winograd, the Biblical Anarchy Podcast, and John Black, you beautiful bastard. And with that, guys, we're going to get out of here. I do have a fun little outro for you. But it's a little bit of a two-parter here. It's a two-parter outro.
Banana.
First off, we have Andrew Tate's hermeneutics of bananas, which I thought was to be... I mean, we've talked about him recently. I know he's going through some trouble, but he does have some interesting insights at times. And here is one of them. Here is him talking about bananas.
Bananas are clearly biddable opponents. You can't rename a banana. Then prove it. People found bananas, and the banana said, "You call me by my fucking name." Obviously, banana's such a gangster. When people start discovering bananas must be used to speak and tell everyone, "Nah, bro, you call me by my name." About street creds. On road. My name is Banana. Where are you from? Germany? Banana. Where are you from? Holland? Banana. England? Banana. Don't call me anything else. Banana.
Although, to throw a little wrinkle into that theory, I'm pretty sure it's called plantain a lot of other places, right? Maybe I'm incorrect there. But either way, this person, Carlos, that noticed things, pointed out that Louis C.K. had a similar theory. Here he is discussing it with the late, great Patrice O'Neill. May he rest in peace, one of the comedy greats. But with that, enjoy this outro. Here's Patrice O'Neill, a classic interaction between Patrice O'Neill and Louis C.K., kind of in a similar vein as Tate's hermeneutics of bananas. But with that, guys, we will see you. Should be tomorrow. I don't know. You never know with Morning Dump. That's why you need to make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications. But should see you guys tomorrow-ish, around 11 a.m. Eastern-ish. But with that, we'll see you guys then. Love you all. Bye-bye.
Hey, here's some interesting news about the Jew thing. Hey, I do know where the term kike came from, by the way.
Ah, derogatory term for Jewish people? Where's that come
I do know where that came from.
Where?
It is when people used to come over on the, in the ships on Ellis Island, a lot of people couldn't write English. So they used to make their mark, and the Jew's mark was a circle. And the circle is called kikel. So that's what they were just shortening it to kike. The guys coming in and said, "Here's another kike." Once they seen the circle.
You know where nigger came from originally? There was some black guy being a nigger, so they called him a nigger.
Jesus.
He was being a real nigger, and somebody said, "What a nigger," and that's where it started.
Nigger was a feeling.
Yeah.